Hi, I'm Lori. This is GLP-1 Journey in Review. Today we're doing a video in my interview series where we talk to people about their weight loss journey. Today we have with us Neil, who has been on here before. I want to remind everybody that Neil's information is going to be linked down below in the description. I also want to remind everybody that I am not a healthcare provider. My guest is not a healthcare provider. We're talking about what works for us. If you're planning a weight loss journey, I strongly suggest that you check with your healthcare provider. All that being said, Neil, why don't you tell us about yourself again?
Hi, Laurie. Thanks for having me again. I think this is the hat trick now, isn't it? Three times. So
Yes,
yeah, it's
yes.
good. Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, I'm Neil. I have a little vlog over here in the UK, My Life's Toil, where it's just followed my journey of losing weight, and it was my anniversary literally 3 days ago. It was a year since I started on this particular episode of my weight loss journey because, like I've mentioned many times on my channel before, it's sort of a management plan more than anything, and trying different things over many years. Being quite an overweight adult most of my adult life, Mounjaro was the answer for me, up until, which we're going to discuss today with you, Laurie. Why
Mhm.
it's no longer the way forward for me, but it seems to have done me a lot of good. So although it does a lot of good for a lot of people, there are the dark side to it as well, which I think we're about today, aren't we?
Absolutely. So, how much weight did you lose? And you said you were on it for a year, correct?
Well, I didn't even get to the year of taking the Manjaro. I and we'll discuss this obviously. I had to stop at the end of November, sort of midway towards the end of November. Can't remember the exact dates, but I did really well, and I've only discussed my sort of achievements today. I've recapped. I've done a bit of an overall vlog today. I started off at 136.5 kilos and reached my target of around 92, and I've sort of stayed around there. So it worked well for me, but on reflection, probably quite a lot in quite a short period of time, really. And I was discussing and sort of recapping that I was losing sometimes 1 or 2 kilos a week, whereas people were sort of griping about only losing 1 or 2 pounds a week. And I sort of like to say, well, that's good because the slow and steady is better
Mhm.
than too quick, really. And I think there's been a few health issues with me. Generally, I'm on the whole, I feel really well, and I'm so glad I've done it because the reasons why, apart from just being overweight all the time, it was becoming more about my health as I was getting older, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and just sort of realizing that we're not going to live forever, and sort of now's the time to really make waves. And when I found
Mhm.
Manjaro, it was like, and I think I mentioned this before to you, Laurie, it's like that miracle cure that a lot of people sort of label it as and looking for, but it's not without its negatives as well. So when do you want me to talk about the negatives?
Well, let's not keep people in suspense. Why don't you explain what happened and why you're off the Mounjaro?
Yeah, well, all the way through, people were saying to me, "Do you see yourself being on Manjaro for life? Because, if you're diabetic, you pretty much will likely be on
Mhm.
Manjaro for life." And, it's not that you can't be. I think a lot of people look at what it can do and are worried that they might have to be on it for life. But then there's the people that, yeah, it works really well to start with, but then things happen with your health in other ways. It may, like it did with me, brought my cholesterol down, it brought my blood pressure down, it made me feel good. I lost a load of weight, it got me moving again, basically. But come November, just gone last year, I only I only hit a relatively low dosage, and I've always advocated for staying as low as you can,
Mhm.
as long as you can. because of the risks. And the main risk I always used to say was pancreatitis. And it's, I always used to put this little sign up on my channel when I was talking about it, just to tell people what the signs and symptoms of pancreatitis were, and not to ignore these particular signs and symptoms. The main
Mhm,
one being serious, severe abdominal pain, upper abdominal pain. Sometimes can be mistaken for chest pain, back pain, and things like that. And going back to November, about mid-November, I started getting these severe abdominal pains. And like I say, I was only taking, I'd only gone up to about the 7.5 milligram dose. In fact, I had been microdosing, so I was actually taking 8 milligrams over the week, but it was in two doses because that worked for me, because my body didn't like
mhm.
me taking any more than five in one go, to be honest with you. And yeah, I retired to bed on the one evening on a Saturday night, having had my part dose on the morning of that day, and I just had severe, horrible pain, and later on started vomiting and ended up in hospital. And after tests and scans and things, was told that I had what I'd always feared and what I'd always advised people to be on the lookout for: pancreatitis. And the advice straight away then was to obviously stop the GLP-1, which I did begrudgingly, because I knew, as I mentioned earlier, that people had always asked, will you be on it for life? I hadn't really got an answer, but I think looking back, yeah, I was expecting to, probably because I always needed that food noise suppressant. That was the only thing that I felt that benefited me, really, was, you know, I was such a snacker, and it really
Mhm.
helped me with that. Mounjaro was brilliant for me with the cutting out that food noise, that was there, the nighttime snacking and the just overeating, and it really cured that for me. But then, so the worry has been since then, how do I manage without it? And after one further episode, even though I was off the Mounjaro, of another bout of pancreatitis again before Christmas, and then being diagnosed with an arrhythmia, atrial fibrillation, which is a bit up in the air at the moment. And without boring you, Lorri, I had an irregular heartbeat at about the same time I
Mhm.
had the second bout of the pancreatitis, literally days after. And I've been put on medication to cater for that, a beta
Did they
blocker.
say if that was GLP-1 related, the arrhythmia?
No, no, they didn't think it was, but they sort of acknowledged that it could be because I had an infection, obviously the pancreatitis, but didn't look that much into it, but still put me on beta blockers and a blood thinner called a Pixaban. And to be fair, since I've been off Manjaro and since I've still been eating healthy, I've obviously started my medication for the heart issue. That and I've since stopped the particular beta blocker, which helps regulate the heart rate.
Mhm.
I haven't had any more sort of incidents of an irregular heart rate, so I'm wondering whether the AF is actually a real thing. That's an ongoing. So we'll
Right.
have to discuss that. Maybe if I'm lucky enough to be chosen for a fourth interview, then maybe
Absolutely.
we can
Uh,
discuss that. But yeah, the pancreatitis is not fun, and I think I only had a mild case of it. It's still not nice at all.
s so at what was there a point that, like, everybody once in a while feels a twinge of pain here and there. Was there a point that made you decide, "Oh, this could be serious?"
Just the severity of it, in all honesty, it was a case of I've never really been one to suffer with any abdominal issues or pains. Really, I used to suffer with epigastric pain in way of heartburn and GERD and that type of thing, and which I was medicated for, which the Manjaro, because of the improved diet, solved for me. It sort of since I started Mounjaro, I seldom would have any heartburn related issues, and those were the only type of thing I had, and that was known in the past. The severeness of the pain that I had with the pancreatitis made me realize there was something massively wrong. Obviously, I'd taken some pain relief to
Mhm.
try and counter it, and it didn't even touch it. But then it was the just feeling really unwell, the hot sweats and the vomiting that came along sort of before I ended up going to hospital. It was a case of, oh no, I think I've got pancreatitis. And it was just a realization. I was in a position to, because, and it was good because the positive out of it was that I was just so aware of it. And I think there's a lot of people that would ignore it. I've even had people that have
Mhm.
contacted me, they've sent me messages, I've been having this horrendous abdominal pain. And yeah, luckily I've managed to see the messages come through soon enough and saying, look, don't get messaging me about this in a nice way, obviously. You need to speak to
Mhm.
someone, even if it's
Absolutely.
nothing, if it's severe enough. We all get minor aches and pains and things. And I think it's just recognizing the difference between what's severe and what's not, and and not going to cause any harm. But I think if you're not sure, you need to get checked if you've got any
So
doubt.
absolutely. So was there a point, like, you said you called an ambulance and they took you, was it at what point were you thinking, "Oh, this could be pancreatitis?"
um the
And you do have a slight medical background, so, it's
Yeah, I am. Yeah, just to clear that up, I'm a paramedic. I don't work on the ambulances anymore. I work in primary care, so I do acute medical um, services basically. So anyone with new and acute type, and it's usually low level type things. I work in a GP surgery, yeah, like a physician surgery type thing as
Mhm,
a paramedic. And we have to have quite a broad knowledge. We touch upon pretty much anything working in what we do. And I was only saying today again on my video, it was a big recap that we have to be able to recognize when people may have something a bit more severe, because a lot of patients, and I did this, I was sort of lay in bed thinking, oh, it'll be this, but burning in the back of my mind, I'm thinking it could be pancreatitis. And it was actually my wife that called the ambulance for me, because I'm just thinking, no, I'll be okay. It could be this, it could be that. And she realized the pain I was in. So we're not very good as sort of healthcare type people, and I will hasten to add that whatever I say on my channel is personal to me. It's just sharing my experiences and not giving the medical advice.
mhm,
It just so happens that I have a medical background, but it was my wife that made the decision that I'm calling an ambulance, because she could just see the pain I was in. I would have eventually
mhm.
done that. I was probably 5 minutes behind her.
I could relate to that because, it was probably about maybe 5 months ago. Uh, it was, I think, 4 or 5 days after my jab day, and all of a sudden I had one bout of severe abdominal pain, and my first thought is, "Okay, one bout, let's see if it comes back." Mm, 10 minutes later, got the second bout, then I got the third bout, and I'm starting to think, "Uh-oh, something's wrong," and I couldn't tell if it was abdominal or chest pain because it was kinda like
This is
low
the thing, isn't it?
low
Yeah.
chest, so I'm like, "Okay, let's call the ambulance, let's see if we could at least rule out that it's not heart, because otherwise I'm going to the hospital." And they said, "It's not heart, uh, but, we strongly suggest that we take you to the hospital." And me being a little bit stubborn, I'm like, "Okay, but I'll have my wife drive me as opposed to going in the ambulance." And they're like, "We could live with that." So, we went to the ambulance and, there all sorts of tests. They're like, "No, not pancreatitis." Uh, and again, like, this is like the first time I ever felt it severe. And while I was in the hospital, like, I only had like one more bout of the pain and, IVs going and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
uh, all of a sudden my stomach started growling and they're like, "Could you just be hungry?" And I'm thinking, I'm on a GLP-1. I haven't been hungry in like a year and a half. Yeah. So possible. But,
Amazing.
I wasn't gonna take that kind of severe pain knowing I'm on a GLP-1, knowing that pancreatitis is a possibility. I wasn't gonna take it lightly. And
Absolutely.
that's kinda like what
Absolutely.
I'm stressing to people is, it can be serious, chances are it's not, but, don't take it lightly. This is your health.
Yeah, especially, and it's if there was no risks associated with these GLP-1s, you could easily explain it off. But I think if you're just that uncomfortable with the pain anyway, that needs sorting.
Mhm,
If it is, whether it's fr what we've got to recall as well is from my training days, from a female's point of view, cardiac pain can also be upper abdominal pain. So in
mhm,
any case, that needs ruling out, doesn't it? You only get one heart, and we need to look after that.
mhm,
So we always say it's easy for us in the UK. We are more on the side of caution anyway because we have the NHS, and that's why the NHS is so overused and, dare I say, abused, because any little sniffle, cough, cold, minor ache, minor pain, right through to the severe side of things, people will go and get that checked out anyway. And
mhm,
we're not in a position to say, well, yeah, you shouldn't really get that checked out because we don't know how severe it is for an individual.
mhm,
Um, some people can handle pain really well, and yeah, my 10 out of 10 pain may be somebody else's 2 out of 10 pain. So it has to be the individual's choice, but the advice would always be to get it checked out. Now, the problem with that from places like America, Australia, where you're paying for your healthcare, if you're not insured, you're in a real sticky wicket. People will let the finances rule the decision rather than
mhm.
healthcare, which is a sad state to be in, isn't it? Um, I don't know what the score is because I don't know whereabouts in you are, Laurie, but
Florida, Florida.
of course I do remember. Yeah, I remember you saying. So it's a difficult one, isn't it? Do you have access to healthcare over in Florida, in the US, where you can just get checked out, or is it always about payment and you need insurance? I don't know.
Pretty much, for me, I'm on Medicare and have a supplemental, so, you can get checked out. There usually are some copays, but, they're minor. They usually range between $20 and I think it goes all the way up to, I think, $200 on a hospital ER visit, which they take away if you get admitted. And again, like I work in healthcare, I'm, nowhere like you. I work in imaging, and I've learned that if this was cardiac related, you know, it's treated much differently if you arrive by ambulance versus if you're a walk-in or drive-in, whatever you want to call it. The protocols are different, and it takes a little bit longer. And if it is cardio, time is of the essence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as it should be. The difference
Mhm.
over here, if you're brought in by an ambulance and it's suspected cardiac anyway, the time differences wouldn't. They're the same. It would be triaged immediately, like anyone else. Or it should be, should I say? But with the pressures on the NHS at the moment, mistakes happen and people do get sort of missed when they've walked in. But they should be seen the same, essentially.
Well, part of the difference in the US is that, your treatment starts in the ambulance versus when you get to the ER, fill out whatever paperwork, and once you say chest pain or short of breath, the paperwork's a lot shorter, then they have to wheel you to the triage, so that takes time.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
matter how fast they are, it's a little bit slower. So,
yeah.
again, my point is, if you're having any sort of thing way out of the ordinary, definitely get it checked out.
Absolutely, and I wouldn't change. I mean, I wouldn't change anything. The treatment was literally I had fluids, pain relief. The first time I did have some antibiotics. The second time it was just fluids and pain relief. Um, touch wood. Now I'm off the Mounjaro. Haven't had any issues at all. The issues with me are just my hunger pangs and dealing with
How
that.
is that going?
It's been going okay, to be honest with you. I don't wanna say heavily into exercising more, but I burn a lot more calories than I used to because I'm able to now. I mean, I was in a
Mhm,
position before where just to move, was difficult for me. I had no inclination to exercise. I'm actually enjoying using the gym now, which is something that if you know me from when I first started, I felt
mhm,
so the gym just wasn't for me. I just felt like all eyes were on me, that um, I felt out of place. You feel that everyone's judging you when you walk in because you're a bigger person going in and you don't belong there. You're in someone else's realm. Whereas now, I literally just go in, I ignore everything that's going on around me, do what I want to do, enjoy what I do, look forward to the next time I go because and I never thought I'd be saying this. If you'd have asked me 12 months ago, "Oh, you'd be going to the gym and enjoying it and being a lot fitter," I'd have probably laughed and opened a bag of crisps in celebration. But no, I think what I'm trying to say is that for those people out there that are thinking about doing the Mounjaro, the Wegovy, whichever ones are available, I think it's really important with channels like yourself, Laurie, to be aware of the real dangers that exist, but also just use that as something that keeps your mind open and just keeps you aware of what can happen because it does happen. I mean, look at me, who I was so on it with looking out for
mhm,
the nasty side effects, and it really happened to me. And that sort of, I want to say, in a way, I'm glad it did because it's been out. I've been able to use it to show people, look, I can tell you exactly what happened, and through channels like yourself as well to just spread the word out there. But at the same time, it can transform your life for the better as well. And
mhm,
yes, okay, I'm off it now and I'm finding other ways to get through, but Manjaro was brilliant for me on the whole. Yeah, it wasn't great. I had other smaller side effects, as I think we've discussed before. I had,
mhm.
nausea. I actually had vomiting when I went down to the Wegovy when the price hikes came in over here. I tried Wegovy for a short time, and that really didn't agree with me. I had these sulfur burps, and they were horrible, and ended up vomiting and all sorts. So I did go back to Manjaro. Um, until I had to stop in the November, but it worked really well for me. And I wouldn't dissuade anyone from trying it, but I would just strongly say, just be aware of the side effects.
Absolutely, and speaking of that, I know when I first started the medication, they did go over the side effects, but at that time, like, I was just so excited I was gonna be on it. I don't even know if I really listened to it. I mean, it kinda, like, went in one ear, out the other. Do you think that the providers, in your, upcoming visits should go over that and keep reinforcing it? Because I
Yeah,
know mine usually don't.
no, I do. And to be fair, the two prescribers that I used were pretty good with pushing that. What I find with people is it tends to be one way or the other. You'll get the section of people that will say, "Oh, yeah, I'd like to try it, but I'm really worried about it because there's some nasty side effects, so I won't touch it." Or there's the people a bit like obviously us, I think, where it's like, "Yeah, just give it me. I want to try. I need this. Yeah, forget what it's going to do." Yeah. And I think there was a little bit of that. I was more excited about my hunger being
Mhm,
taken away from me. That yeah, I was aware that these side effects were there, and that's why I pushed it on the channel because
mhm.
it's easy to forget them. If you're so focused on just losing weight and just what it can do for me in the positive, we still need to remind ourselves about what it can do in the negative as well.
Now, in fairness to my providers, they did go over the nausea, constipation, diarrhea, but not the major side effects. So, they're thinking of taking the unalive warning off of the box, and the GIP obviously does something to the brain because our thoughts are different, our dopamine's different. We're not having the same cravings and stuff. So it's doing something to the brain. So, like, I don't, uh, I wouldn't be so quick as to take the unalive warning off, but, I understand why they're doing it. What are your thoughts on it?
I think if you've got any medication that can affect mood in that way and people's thoughts about unaliving themselves, I think you would always have to include some type of warning anyway. And unfortunately, it's just that these big companies tend to get away with being able to persuade the regulators to be able to have decisions made in their favor like that. I think when it comes down to healthcare, and the ultimate is people feeling that low mood makes them feel in such a way that they don't want to be around anymore. I think it's imperative that warnings stay on medication like that, even if the risk and the yeah, even if the risk is really low. I think if there's even less than 1%, which I don't know what the figures are,
Mhm.
it still needs to be included
Yeah, no,
for me.
I've interviewed some obesity specialists that don't really care so much if the unalive is taken off of the warning because they discuss this with their patients. It's the primary care physicians that don't take quite as much time as those obesity doctors that I worry about.
Yeah, that's. I think just even with it, without the medication, the medication involved anyway, I think people can just get in such a frame of mind. I know I wasn't happy with how I was. I mean, Manjaro was an absolute revelation for me, and it
Mhm.
made me feel great. But how would I, if it hadn't worked for me like it did? And I've seen some people in despair, the fact that it just doesn't touch them. So you've even got that side of things, whereas people see it as the last chance saloon, if you will. So I think mental health needs considering a lot to do with any weight loss injections or weight loss in itself, because people are sometimes at their wits' end, and if the medication can actually make a change in that way, because there's a lot of research that says it helps in a good way, but if it helps in a bad way as well, it needs recognition, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So now that you're off the Mounjaro, what are you doing uh, differently to maintain your weight? Are you concentrating, you said you're working out more. Are you concentrating more on proteins or like, how are you handling that?
It is a varied diet. I am trying to keep going with the calorie counting, which isn't necessarily done on a daily basis like it would have been before. I tend to spread it over a week.
Hmm.
And with that, I mean, if I do have bad days, because I do have bad days, or days when I've been a bit naughty and given into things, if people offer, oh, do you fancy a drink, or do you want some of this piece of cake or something, if you're visiting family and friends, um, I'll let myself do that, but then I'll balance it out with other days. And I still use the apps. There's loads of apps that are available to help me calorie count, which can be seen as a bit tedious at times, but it can be a lifesaver as well. Not literally a lifesaver like we've been just talking about, but it can sort of really help. But the days that I do go down to the gym, I find it really easy to control my diet more. It feels like I'm
Hmm.
putting the effort in, and I really need to sort of step up a little bit more. Keeping busy is a massive thing. I notice when if I'm not at work and just around the house doing things, I'm more likely to want to pick. So it's almost like how I used to be, but I still just have that little bit of control now. And I think it's about reminding yourself of where you were. And I think it's a bit different for people like us, Laurie, because of what we do, and we sort of broadcast it how we
Hmm.
are. Although I haven't done as much recently, I'm just with how busy I've been. We get a lot of support back from the people that follow the channels, don't we? And it sort of
Absolutely.
you feel like you've got some responsibility there as well.
Hmm.
Um, I think if I hadn't been vlogging what I've done over the last year, I I'm pretty 99% certain I'd have fallen back into really bad ways again. So I think I'm grateful that I've got people that
Mhm.
support me that way, and yeah, that's one of the reasons why I do it as well. Not just to help other people, to help
Right.
me, and yeah, there is
Absolutely.
that side of it. So yeah,
So now are GLP-1 medications, a no-no for you for life, or is there a possibility if you needed to for them to come back in the future?
that's the new question that I'm asking myself. The old question was, will I be on it for life? But then when that was taken away from me because of the pancreatitis, the new question is, do I ever think that I'll never be able to go on it? And the sensible side of me would be like, don't touch it with a barge pole, which is an old saying here in the UK.
Mm,
I hope you've heard of that one. Um, but I look into the future as to the new medications that may come out,
mhm.
and wonder if it's something that I could investigate and explore in the future. So I foolishly, some would say, haven't completely ruled it out, because I still do struggle with the suppression, although I am managing it basically, as I say, not on a day-to-day basis, but on a week-to-week basis. But I haven't ruled out not doing something in the future.
Now, the next question, in the future, if for some reason with some of the new medications, you decided you needed this and you had to go back, would you continue with your provider or would you go to a specialist since you've had this type of problem?
That would be something I would fully research what was available myself. Like I did before with the Mounjaro, I did a lot of reading before I started it, and I spoke to people, and I'm in a position where I've got colleagues that are in the, well,
Mhm,
supposedly in the know, although I think people would be surprised to understand that a lot of medical practitioners, medical people, GPs, physicians aren't that genned up on GLP-1s really. You probably know, being in your um,
mhm,
and from what you've researched as well, it's surprising how much they don't know still. Just to
absolutely.
go off on a tangent, Laurie, I was going to mention over here, our GPs on the NHS are having financial incentives to push GLP-1s like
Hmm,
Mounjaro to more people over here, up to thousands of pounds per year incentives for the GPs and the primary care trusts to put people on it. So
hmm,
that's an interesting one, isn't it?
that is.
But as
It's a good
for,
thing, I think.
yeah, I think it is. I think it is because you've got to weigh up what's the cost going to be of looking after that person because of their
Mhm,
health if they stay and continue to be unhealthy in the way they're going, or yeah, like get people thinking about their weight earlier on and trying to avoid the cost anyway. I mean, it may be on par, it may be the same sort of costings involved, but I think we've got to look at putting people's health first, haven't we? And yes, there are downsides like we've discussed today, and there's risks, but that's only a risk. If you've got a health issue now that needs tackling, and if that's obesity, then let's tackle it.
absolutely. So, knowing everything that you've been through now,
Mm.
and this experience, if you could go back to while you were thinking about taking it, would you still have taken the Mounjaro?
Absolutely. And if it had been available a decade ago and I'd have known about it, I'd have started it then as well, because it was my new lease of life. It's just brilliant, because I was looking back at some of the old pictures, some of the old videos, and I just
Mhm,
don't recognize myself even from a year ago, and it's only for the better. So yeah, I wouldn't hesitate, and I wouldn't hesitate in telling someone if they're. I know that there's people that buy this stuff and they have it in their fridge and they're frightened to start it. I've had people message me, "Oh, it's been sat in the
mhm,
fridge for weeks," and if that be worried about jabbing themselves, I try and help them with that, and then I try and help them with a bit of research as well that point them in the right direction, and try and help them make a decision. I won't make a decision for anyone. I'm not in that position to do that, as we've
mhm.
already said. But if someone's gone out and spent a lot of money, there's some sort of, you know, want to do it there, and yeah, that would be my advice because I think the benefits outweigh the negatives.
Going back to the pancreatitis, you had it initially, you had a second bout. Does this mean that you're gonna be prone to pancreatitis more often, or was that just the second bout kind of a fluke thing, or
It could have been because they were fairly close together. It could have been that I just hadn't completely recovered from the first time. But with pancreatitis, you can get chronic pancreatitis anyway, so it's something I need to be really mindful of. And I guess the official answer would be that I shouldn't touch GLP-1s ever at all. But like I say, we never know what the future holds.
it's like
Foolishly, people will be
it
watching this thinking, "Oh, you're silly."
well, it's like it had such success, and like I don't know about you, but I definitely was in the obese category, and it's such a good feeling,
Yeah,
and such a almost a mental high, that you achieve a normal weight that it's that
yeah.
dopamine's going. It's like yeah, I could see how somebody could get addicted to something. Yeah.
Absolutely, and the actual journey itself, um, I remember that first day when I felt the impact of the jab on me, and not everyone gets the same, but you just feel that, "I don't feel hungry," and that was my first eureka moment with
Hmm.
Mounjaro. I just remember thinking, "Wow, if this is," and that doesn't last forever, I know that, and
Hmm.
you can go at the and I didn't go all the way through the doses, and possibly could have, although I really wanted to avoid going up the doses. It happened to me with the pancreatitis anyway. But it was just those meeting those milestones then of when you weigh yourself and you see the weight coming off and you get into smaller clothings, all those milestones, the acknowledgement and like you say, just feeling good and being able to move about. And I go down the gym now and I'm doing things that I probably couldn't when I was in my 20s, like 30 years ago,
Hmm.
and that feels great. And it feels really good now because I'm sort of proud of myself that I'm managing without Manjaro. And I think I'm putting pressure on myself because one of the negatives I will say is that your mind, whilst you're on this, I keep saying journey, and I won't change because I can't think of another word for it. um, you have to just be aware that you're thinking about it all the time and try not to be because it takes over your life if you let it. Which, if you're enjoying it and you're enjoying the ride, that's great. But if you're not
Hmm.
quite enjoying it and everything's about that, oh, I need to count this, I need to count that. Like, what day am I on? What but I think it just shows that it does become a way of life, and eventually you just live it and you're not thinking. It's like driving a car, isn't it? Initially, you're thinking about everything
Hmm.
gear change and looking here, there, and everywhere, and you're sort of vocalizing it. But then eventually, you don't even realize that you've driven somewhere. And I think once you get to that stage, if it's still working for you, you've had no complications, then that's good. If that
So
makes
when you
sense.
it does. So when you had to stop the Mounjaro, I know you were a little sick, so the time probably would be a little bit different. But how long was it before you started like getting the cravings, and has the food noise returned? Uh, what period of time did that take?
Quite quickly, because if I'm honest, the day after I came out of hospital, I was back down the gym, and that day was fine. I felt well. It wasn't a heavy workout. I just wanted to be in that environment because mentally I was telling myself, what am I going to do? Because I put so much pressure on myself. Oh my God, I was reliant on this medication. And I thought the best place to be was the gym just to show that, no, you can do this. But within days, I was like, I noticed I was hungry. Days. Yeah, although
So,
I'd only had a jab on the Saturday morning. I was taken into hospital on the Saturday evening, came out on the Sunday evening, um, gym on the Monday, and that week noticed the hunger started to kick in, which was unusual because I'd had a jab, if you would, so I shouldn't have, but I think that was more of a mental thing with me, just
No,
knowing that
you
the
also had a lot of
GLP-1.
fluids,
Yes, I was
which
being
I'm sure.
flushed. Oh, I had a lot of fluids go through me, yeah, pushing everything
Mhm.
through me, so yeah, there was that.
Uh, so, like, how did you first handle the hunger and the food noise? Any differently? Did you try to ignore it? Uh,
Yeah.
did you
Sort of
panic?
yeah, all of them, all of the above. It was a case of what we used to do, sort of, drinking fluids, trying to fill up on fluids, making sure I was counting calories so I knew when I'd hit my limit for the days, and just telling myself, and then trying to balance it out when I did go over. I think the big one was giving into offers. If you were like friends, if I mean, my family, my son would come in, like my youngest son, he'd bring fast food in, and I'd be like, no, I'm fine, thank you. And then, oh, well, maybe just a little bit then. That was a big difference with me. But I think it's at the same time, and what I've said all the way along is to not rule out all foods. It's about just, we all say moderation, don't we? You've
Mhm,
still got to enjoy your food. And I think that was the saving grace to a certain extent, because there wasn't anything really that I sort of forbid myself to have. I would eat more protein. That became a bit of a staple, and fiber, because I was always getting bunged up on Manjaro. That was one of the small side effects that I had an issue with. But I never sort of starved myself of a treat, but just in
mhm,
moderation. In the old me, it wouldn't have just been, um, a small piece of chocolate, or a bag of what we call crisps over here.
mhm,
It would have been a multi-pack back in the day, and a whole multi-pack of chocolates or something, and snacking on the night. That I've still managed to control really well to this day. But it's a case of knowing that you can still include the treats in with your calories, and if you do go
mhm.
over, like I say, you've got another day to rectify that. So how long it lasts
Yeah.
for, I don't know, but it's working at the moment.
And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people make on GLP-1 or a lot of different diets is you just start thinking, okay, I'm going to eat the food that I don't enjoy, like the raw vegetables,
Yeah,
and like you don't have to do that.
really
It
good
doesn't
point.
have to be plain grilled chicken. Put some spices on it, make it a little tasty. Like enjoy it. And they're the old mindset of all these other diets are, nope, this is what you're going to have, to lose the weight. So, suck it up for a few months. You're not going to enjoy eating, which is
That's
why
a
we
really
can't
good
say
point,
to
isn't
it.
it? It's just about finding a new you, and yeah, it doesn't hurt to try and eat some of these healthy foods, and
Mm.
that,
Oh,
because,
no.
but at the same time, healthy foods are still far more expensive than the unhealthy ones, aren't they? So I think it's good to try and keep a balanced diet as well. It's just about portion sizes, and just, I think the one thing actually I just reminded myself was I was amazed at how little I needed to eat compared to how I ate before I was on the Manjaro, because you could just literally eat until beyond fullness, and I often
Hmm.
did. I mean, I'd go out for a meal and still come back and eat afterwards, even having felt full at bedtime, all the wrong times, what they say. But it was a case of just knowing that, especially if I was cooking, I'd put myself just what I needed to eat, and that was the suppression side of the Manjaro helping with that as well. Just, and I've taken that on. Although it has gone up a little bit since I've been off the Manjaro, I do tend to eat slightly more portion size wise than I did. It's nothing like it was before, and that's the physical me now saying, I remember I don't need to eat this much. I mean, if I'd cook myself like a chili and rice or something like that, I'd absolutely pile it up. It'd be huge, and you'd force it in. You'd be like, "Oh no, I've made this. I don't want to waste any. It's going in there."
Hmm.
No, it's just like, well, I know I only need this much, and I only need this much rice, this much chili, with a big glass of water, and I know that's enough for me, because and I keep going, and I know the calories are there to be able to cater for that.
So you're in maintenance. You've come off the Mounjaro. Have you maintained? Have you gained any weight? Are you happy with whatever the outcome is?
Well, I set myself a little buffer when I reached 92 kilos. I set a little buffer of about 4 or 5 kilos. So if I put that back on, I wouldn't be too upset, but really keep an eye on things and not go any more than that. If it was more than that, I'd be sort of the red needle. You need to do something.
Mhm,
And that happened. I put on about 5 kilos pretty much straight away, and I'm thinking, here we go. What do I do? And it was just a case of the sensibility sort of triggered, and I just had a few weeks of still enjoying my food, but doing what exactly I've just said, really, just making sure those portion sizes were there. There was a period of time where, and it was pretty much over the Christmas period, to be honest with you. So I'd catered for that as well. There was lots of eating out. You know what Christmas
mhm,
can be like for most people. It's just
absolutely.
eating all the wrong things. And I'd put it down to that as well. And we made decisions. We still had stuff left from Christmas. We gave it away. We were loath to throw good stuff away, but sometimes it did go in the bin. Because as a family, we've all eaten healthier because of me being on this Manjaro diet. But I've actually weighed myself over the weekend. I'm 93 kilos again. So
Yeah,
I'm
good.
really happy I've managed to, since Christmas, to get myself back in where I want to be. So although I'm a kilo more than the 92, I'm happy. I'm really happy with
Mhm.
93, having lost a few more. So it's all good.
What was your family's reaction to your pancreatitis?
Um, Mixed, really. A lot of people, everyone knows that's in the family and friends that have been on the the medication, and not enough people know enough that it was because of the Manjaro. My wife, obviously being close to me, does. She knows, all the things I put out about it as well. And yeah, she acknowledged that she knew the risks. It was her when we had the discussion on the night about calling the ambulance. She sort of had a moment. It's like, it's that bloody Manjaro that you've been on. Yes, it's helped, and that happened, and I had to let that go because I was in too much pain to argue with her.
Mhm.
She was probably right. But no, it's still support that, on the whole, I think we have to take a global picture. And me now, compared to me before, I'd rather have had a couple of episodes of pancreatitis, having got myself fitter and healthier, and hopefully see me through a longer life, being fitter and healthier and enjoying life more and being able to do a lot more, than the unknown, a candidate for an MI, heart attack, strokes,
Mhm.
diabetes, with the high cholesterol, the high blood pressure. The risks there for me were far outweighed the new me now. So yeah, I've had a pancreatitis, but I still feel blessed that I've been able to lose the weight that I've lost, because I wouldn't have been able to do it without the support of the Manjaro.
And so, speaking of support, how were your subscribers' reactions? Because I know when you first got the pancreatitis, I mean, even the US, there was a big buzz. Neil's got pancreatitis. Did you hear?
Crikey. um, we've got, and it's the same with you. The communities that you build up on your channels is just amazing, isn't it? And they're like family. And there was
Mhm,
such a lot of concern and people. I don't think I've been able to get through all the messages to this day, because I was just absolutely flooded with messages of support and love and concern. There was the odd one, well, what do you expect? So that type of thing, which
mhm,
we're open to all aspects of society here. We have to take the rough with the smooth, and
mhm.
but on the whole, it was such a really good response, because I class them all as friends now. It's just like we're all part of the same community, and it like we were talking about at the start. It's just acknowledging, and to a certain extent, it's in a way I'm sort of glad that it happened to me, so I can let them know that this is real and just to be aware of it. And if I'd have just gone through and everything's fine for me, I couldn't just. My message to people would have been, "Oh, you'll be fine. Yeah, just go and do it. Yeah, there's no risks. It's fine. Yeah." And in a way, it sort of brings you back down to earth and makes you realize and take stock. And you're able to share that with the people that care for you in the same way that you care for them, really, because that's what it's about at the end of the day. I know it sounds a bit slimy, but you can't help it once you start getting to know these people, can you?
Absolutely.
Because yeah, they've been lovely. No, the sport's been great on the whole.
So, do you have any regrets of how you handled all of this with the pancreatitis?
Um, I think it was not so much in the way of regret. I think it's more a case of if it was if it was going to happen, it was going to happen. I did everything I could to ensure that I minimized the risks, and I followed my own advice. Really, it was staying as low as I could, as long as I could. I never intended to get up to 15 milligrams of Mounjaro. I, I wouldn't have got that far. In fact, I only got to. I mean, the official is 7.5, but I was taking 8 milligrams a week, and that was split.
Hmm.
Um, and I could have just taken more doses, and I'd have just got pancreatitis soon. I think some people are just susceptible to getting certain things, and I think I was just one of them. It may be that if I started taking Mounjaro again, I'd be fine, but the risk really is too great to be doing it just yet. Who knows in the future if I get a bit overweight again, I might need to look at it, but I haven't completely ruled it out, like we said earlier on. But
Hmm.
I wouldn't change a thing. No, I think I safety netted myself as best that I possibly could, and like I said before, the benefits really did outweigh the negatives.
What have the doctors said about any future use? Have any of them left that door open a little, or have they all just said no?
Well, I work with doctors that are really anti GLP-1, and I think a little bit of that is the fact that because they've seen a lot of people have. I had another colleague that was on Manjaro, who was a source of information, a great source of information for me before I even started. But they literally stuck to the guidelines to the letter of the law. So they went 2.55s in such a short, even though they could have stayed on a lower dose. And they ended up with pancreatitis when they hit the 15 milligrams and were quite poorly. And obviously, working for the same doctors, that was the first that they'd really had any knowledge of Manjaro, GLP-1s. So their minds has been pretty much made up quite early on that it's not necessarily a good medication to have. So they were always a little bit against me being on them. And they knew, and they sort of supported me, just told me to be cautious and careful with how I was using them. And they knew that I was always on a low dose, and they did know obviously when I'd had issues around having to come off them, and it was sort of a little bit of the "told you so" type thing. Which
Yeah,
wasn't good.
absolutely.
Wasn't easy to hear. But the thing is, when you become that sort of focused, people are missing out on the real benefits of it, because there will be people out there that will have issues with it, but there will be a lot of people that it will do such a great deal of good for as well. And it's a shame that some people won't even. And this is where I was talking about where GPs are being offered incentives to push Manjaro in particular, and GLP-1s. Not all the GPs will, because not all the GPs are that genned up, as I say, on the benefits of it. They just choose not to even look at it, even for diabetes in some cases.
So this is kind of a different type of question, but I know here in the US, we just got the quick pen approved, so we'll have the whole month's worth in one pen, and we have vials, and they're considering the multi-dose vials of the Zepbound, Mounjaro. T Here's it's Zepbound here. It's Mounjaro is for the diabetes, but so, people have that freedom to kinda just change their doses on their own. S You could split dose almost without talking to your, physician if you wanted to. Do you think this is a good thing, bad thing? Like, how do we make this a little bit more responsible? I mean, I don't wanna see people having to meet with their physicians, like, every 4 weeks because that's kind of a waste of time and money, but, there's gotta be some way that it's a little better controlled because I know people are just on their own change their doses, especially when you have that whole vial or that whole
Yeah.
quick pen and because they have a couple of extra, so I'm just gonna increase it.
Well, that's why it's been so easy over here to do the split dosing and micro dosing and whatever people want to call it. And have we been lucky? Is it the right word to say that we've been lucky that we can do that? Or would it have been better that we had to follow the strict guidelines by being the same as the US? It's a difficult one. I guess the only thing that we can do is just be really precise with our education about if people are going to not follow the guidelines. And maybe would it be too harsh to say, well, we could withdraw medication if you don't follow the correct dosing? I think the best thing that people can do is just be totally honest with their care provider and their prescribers and just say, look, I'm thinking of doing this, or this particular regime of the medication doesn't suit me. Would you be open to discussing with me about split dosing? I think just being open, if you're thinking about changing the dose, being open, because what will that do further down? Like, I don't know what the legalities are if you come off what the doctor's told you to do and what the doctor's prescribed. If you change that without letting them know, does that change the course of your particular care with someone? I don't know if that could be the case over there.
Mm.
Could a doctor refuse to say, well, I'm not giving you any more? I'm not sure how it works over there, but
Yeah, and they can refuse to give it to you, and chances are the person will just pick up and go to another provider.
yeah. And the doctor may
So some
never
of them try to
never
talk
know
about it,
anyway.
because
Yeah.
it's so,
Yeah, it's a difficult one.
let's talk a moment about split dosing. Um, I think I tried it one time, and to me, I would rather just get the big surge of the appetite suppression and so forth, because it didn't quite work as quite as well for me when I did the split dose. But you know, I, I think I tried it because so many people were talking about it, but in my mind, I can't think of a reason why somebody would split dose other than for side effects.
That's all it was with me. When I went up to the 5 milligrams from the 2.5, initially it was okay and the suppression was really good, but literally within only a couple of doses, it was just the nausea and feeling horrendous. It really, nothing nasty, just feeling just a horrible malaise, just constantly. I couldn't get up in the mornings. It just had such an impact that way. And I'd always really advocated for following the nice guidelines over here. Well, if this is how they want us to take it, really is how it should be, unless your doctor's told you to. Because some of the doctors over here have actually suggested to some people to dose 5 daily rather than 7 daily. And I did speak to some colleagues about it, and the sort of and they were aware of it being off license as well. So I decided to just try the 5 milligrams over 2 doses a week, and it literally was to help with the side effects, as you say, and it worked really well for me for a while as well. It took a while, a good few months, until I sort of started to get used to the fives, and then I stepped up to the 7.5. Again, that was split dose, 3.75 twice a week. And I ended up just titrating up when I got a bigger pen when the price increase occurred. I was allowed to buy a 10 milligram pen by my supplier, but I was only taking 2 4 milligram doses a week out of that. So I only ended up on 8 milligrams, which is just barely above the 7.5, which is only
Mhm.
halfway through the actual full efficacy of the dose, if you will, going up to 50. I never even went anywhere near that. And I still ended up with pancreatitis. So,
Yeah, so we'll do something a little bit different now. I'm going to name a side effect, and you're going to tell me, in your opinion, if it should be, I mean, they all should be taken, with some concern, but whether it's just concern or deep concern. Okay?
okay. And I'll tell you if I had that side effect at some point as well.
Okay. Nausea.
Yeah, I think any nausea that's prolonged should be taken seriously. I think a couple of days of nausea, and if it responds to an antiemetic, fine. But we
Const
need to give it time. But yes, I did have that
okay.
as well.
Okay. Constipation.
Yes, that was a big one for me. Um, Constipation should always be taken seriously anyway, because obviously if you don't rectify it, it's going to cause some serious problems quite quickly.
Diarrhea.
Yes, should still be taken seriously. Obviously, the level of seriousness changes, but you need to be making sure you're having fluids, because you will become dehydrated quickly if you're not able to eat or take anything in fluids wise because you're taking the medication. If you're having diarrhea, then you could become dehydrated quite quickly and become quite poorly. So yes, it does need taken seriously.
Um, some people say eye pain or
Eye
eye
pain.
effects. Vision effects, I should say.
Now, there was some research into this, wasn't it? And from what I remember, and I didn't read the full paper, but wasn't it more related to the diabetes side of things and got sort of
I was.
disproved? Yeah. So, but any eye effects should always be taken seriously. If you have any visual changes, go and see your doctor.
Fatigue.
Yeah, I suffered that as well. That was when I went on to the fives. Yeah, that could be, are you not meeting your calorie intake goals? Are you not getting your vitamins and minerals? Just a diet change. So if that's prolonged again, you might want to look into why it's not improving. So
Headache.
eventually it would need to, sorry, yeah, if I was going to say eventually it would need checking.
Okay.
Headaches. Yeah, I didn't really suffer headaches. I know people that have. I think initially you can get sort of headaches as your diet changes, as your metabolism changes, but if it's prolonged, it would certainly, and again, dehydration could come into people getting headaches. So there could be knock-on effects come into the headaches. But again, if it's something that doesn't resolve, would certainly need looking into.
Changes in your sleep.
Interesting one. Yes, people have been talking about vivid dreams and nightmares and
Hmm.
poor sleep, but then people were talking about having fantastic vivid dreams and great sleep. So that one's really split, isn't it? I used to get some really weird dreams at the start, some just
Yeah.
unusually weird, just weird dreams. I'm not going to tell you about any of them. um, but yeah, yeah. So there is something to that. There is something to that from my point of view, definitely. Yeah,
And then
nothing to
the
worry about that.
abdomen pain.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any severe abdo pains, a bit of tummy ache, a bit of wind, or just dietary changes, you can expect it. Like, give it a few days, but anything severe really does need checking out.
Heartburn, acid reflux type of thing.
I thought Mounjaro actually solved my heartburn. I was on PPIs before I started taking Mounjaro, and whether it was because my diet improved or whether Mounjaro had a direct influence on that, my GERD symptoms resolved, and touch wood, my desk still good now.
Sulfur burps.
I've had these as well. These horrendous. Out of the mild side effects, Laurie, I would say that the sulfur burps were possibly one of the most horrendous things to go through, especially if you find yourself at work and you're wearing one of the masks.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're not nice. And yeah, I won't go into too much detail, but they're horrendous because you could walk into a room if someone's had sulfur burps, you're not sure which end it's come out of because they're that horrendous. I don't think we'll go any further than that, but
Okay. Uh,
you know what I'm
in
saying.
injection site redness.
Yeah, it's something to be aware of. Obviously, it can be normal to get mild reactions at site where you inject. It's not necessarily an allergy, as some people think it is, but they are classed as mild reactions. So if you carry on with the medication, choose another site until that's resolved. If you keep getting it and it keeps causing problems, or it looks like it's going infected, always go and get that checked out as well. And yes, I did have one or two little reactions on my abdomen, usually cleared up in a few days. Always just change sites.
And just a little nausea.
Yeah, nausea, as long as it resolves, that should be fine. But if it's ongoing and it's stopping you eating, then yeah, it needs checking.
Am I leaving any of them out?
Oh, I've had the taste changes was a big one for me.
Taste changes.
Yeah, I couldn't drink coffee for such a long time. I'm enjoying a cup of coffee again now. It was like eating an ashtray. It
It's
was just like ash. It reminded me of when I had COVID because I had the same sort of symptoms then with
Mhm.
the taste of coffee and tea. And we drink tea over here, don't we? I couldn't drink a cup of tea over here because just the taste changes and all sorts of things that just different. Yeah, even sweet things, like I did a little video on this actually about some of the research on it. Sweet things were really sweet and savory things were
Mhm.
really savory, and I think that was why coffee tasted such like ash for me. But no problem with that at the moment.
Okay. So we're gonna kinda wrap this up with you giving your best advice on side effects and, what people should do.
Well, the ultimate is that if you've had any nasty side effects, even if you're not sure about them, just get them checked out. Just get them checked out. If there's any severe pain, don't sit on it. And I know people have. I've had people wait for me to get back to them with messages that are suffering severe pain because they're not sure. If th- if you're never sure on something, the answer would always
Mhm.
be to get it checked. Um,
Absolutely.
I think if you've never had any even mild side effects, you're very lucky. Most people will get something, I think, that I found. I don't know if you feel the same about this. The side effect that always used to come up with me was either nausea or constipation.
Mhm.
Those were the biggest side effects I ever noticed while I was talking to people on the channel. And a handful of people, including myself, with pancreatitis, out of over 4,000 people that have, been involved in the channel. Literally a handful of people have told me that they've ended up in hospital with pancreatitis. Um, but I think that's enough just to take any serious tummy pain, any abdo pain seriously. It's, yeah, always better to be safe than sorry, I think.
Absolutely. So, again, Neil, I'd like to thank you for sharing both your good parts of your journey and the bad parts with us, because they need to be talked about and people
Yeah.
need to actually hear them.
No, thank you again, Laurie, for having me on. It's been a pleasure to be able to share my experiences, and I hope it helps someone in some sort of way moving forward.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you and